I'm getting ready to head out here pretty soon. I'm going to be collecting some footage for an upcoming video that I've been thinking about for some time now. But the reason why I'm making this video is because Messenger Rising made a recent video regarding workplace death, and it's a very important topic that I think males need to understand. Right around the same time Messenger made that video, I witnessed the aftermath of a man falling from a roof. He was working maybe 3 stories up. It was an odd shaped roof, and I heard the fall. I didn't see it. He was maybe 50 feet away from me. It was in a remote area. There was other people around that came to his aid, and 911 was called, but it took nearly 30 minutes for an ambulance to arrive just because of the remote area. And he was alive at the time. I don't know what happened to him since. I've been looking in the media, newspaper. I can't find anything. But to hear his moans on the ground was absolutely horrifying. The ladder that he climbed up was straight up and down. The top rung was barely over the roof. I can assume there was no fall protection. It was just a very disturbing scene. And I understand that that happens all the time because I've worked construction type jobs, and during our training, during fall protection training, we hear about the horror stories, and it's nothing to play around with. I fell from a height before. There was an old barn that I had to tear down, and the barn was maybe 100 years old, and the roof started to go, and everything inside had to go, be cleaned out. And yeah, basically it was just me for the whole summer there, working by myself, and no one was around, no one was home, just me tearing down this barn. And I was up on a 2nd story level, and the boards beneath me was barely hanging on there, and they let go, and I fell through that 2nd story all the way down to the 1st story. I broke through the bottom level, and I landed on a dirt floor because it was an old barn, and I was unhurt. There was dust, debris everywhere. There was tires flying everywhere. I had metal pipes landing right next to me. There was hornets flying all around. It took me literally like 5 minutes to get out of there. I was in the way my body landed, it was just very hard to get out. But these are just a few examples of risks that only men have to endure. We endure it, but we don't complain about it. We use our innate capabilities as men to take on these tasks, and it's relatively easy for us. It's almost natural for some of us to work in this manner, to push ourselves. We feel like we have accomplished something, and that's what drives us as men. But I've learned as I've gotten older that society in general, especially women, they could care less about your working conditions or a fatality. They'll sympathize, but that's as far as it goes. Again, I think the reason why I'm making this video is because when men die in the workplace, it just seems so common, and oh, another person died. It's within my lifetime, I've heard a small handful of men dying in the workplace. The places that I've worked at, 2 or 3 people have died. One man committed suicide at the workplace. Another man had a heart attack and died. Countless. I've worked with countless men who have missing digits on their hands, working with missing fingers. The nip points and crush points, and the men walking around with limps, and the men that are hard of hearing. They've lost their hearing because they don't want to wear ear protection. Countless men. I've worked with men like that my whole life. And as a young man, you want to make the older men feel like, you fit in, so you take the risks just to fit in sometimes. But as you grow older, you have to come to your senses and, be more risk adverse. That's the way I am now. I'm like, it has to be safety first, or I ain't doing it. I don't care about the job. Over the years, I've been taken to the emergency room 4 or 5 times while working on the job. I've needed stitches. I've been hit in the head. There's injuries, burns. But the key point is I accepted all these risks, and I never complained due to all the injuries that I've acquired. I've never complained once. I accepted the risks. I was getting paid because of those risks. Another example that just pops into my head right now, it's an example that I think about often. Did a lot of work in confined spaces, and either you're the hole watcher or you're the guy in the confined space doing the work. And I remember an instance where I had to work with a younger guy, and he wanted to stay in the hole and not come out. And he had to get that work done, and he was in there for a long time, and I kept telling him to come out, take a breather, take a break. But he wouldn't, and he had to get that work done. And that goes to show you, like, it's innate in a man to put himself, his life last. The work, it was meaningless work. Screw that work. He risked his life for what? Because it's innate in him to accomplish this task, whatever it is, Putting a roof on a house, big fucking deal. Take the time and do it right. Set the staging up right, Is it really worth falling off that fucking roof? I've seen this my whole life. I've been a part of it. I've taken the risks, and I've suffered the consequences sometimes. But I'm old enough now, and I think I have the common sense to let off the throttle a little bit and just think the situation through. I'm going to end this video on a very sobering note. It's something that I don't particularly like to talk about. My father died in the workplace. He was a logger. I was a young boy when he passed away. And this subject is very real. This stuff happens. I mean, families are torn apart when their dad dies, passes on, over what?